All right. Hello, DFW Women's Club. My name's Ashley Wagner. I'm your president, and I am very excited to announce our speaker this month for our virtual educational learning series. And that's going to be Miss Annette Presley. She comes to us talking about how to enjoy sugar during the holiday season. We know it's going to be inevitable that throughout the fourth quarter, October, Halloween, all the parties, Thanksgiving, December, all the holiday parties, lots of times to collaborate and get together with friends and family, and also a time where we're probably all thinking about, oh my gosh, I need to start my diet, or how am I going to get through this? I'm trying to be good today, right? And she has a really unique way of looking at this. She's a registered dietitian and so much more, but she's been in this field for over 30 years. So, really excited to hand it over to you, Annette, and just share a little bit of knowledge about the topic with us. We're really excited to hear your little magic secret here and how it's going to work out for us.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. And just a little bit of background. About 14 years into being a dietitian, I discovered the advice I was giving was actually causing chronic disease and obesity. And so I almost quit nutrition entirely. I was so angry. But God told me I can't quit. I had to tell the truth. So I did, and I got in trouble and actually had to defend my credentials for telling people to eat butter instead of margarine, basically. But it was a really eye-opening experience. What I discovered is our entire healthcare system is more about politics than it is about science. And so a lot of the advice that we get is not actually based on science. It has more to do with where the money goes and what pocket it ends up in. So I just think people deserve to have the truth, and they need to know all sides so they can make truly informed decisions. And so that's what I'm all about. And so today I'm going to talk about sugar because everything we've been told about sugar is wrong. And so I'm going to try to share my screen a little here. Okay, so the reason we crave sugar is because we actually need sugar. It is the preferred fuel for the brain. And I suspect, like with depression and anxiety, we are actually medicating a need for sugar. If we'd eat more sugar, we would feel better. And I have experienced this actually because my husband passed away 2 years ago, and grief really affects your brain and your thinking. And when I started eating more sugar, I felt so much better and I thought better, and it really improved my mental well being. So, this is why. Um, so, before we can really get into sugar, we have to understand why it's okay in the first place. And so, I call this the stress cascade. Stress raises our cortisol. And today we live in a very stressful environment. Most of us have chronic stress, not just from like one time events, but just, traffic is an everyday thing. We have difficult people in our lives. There's just all kinds of stressors out there. And so we have this high cortisol level that's kind of hanging around. And cortisol actually causes insulin resistance. It causes our gut bacteria to produce endotoxin, and that can actually travel to the brain. Cortisol increases serotonin, and contrary to popular belief, serotonin is not the happy hormone. You do not want high levels of serotonin. And I suspect that we will be seeing class action lawsuits against the SSRI drugs for depression because we've known really, at least since the 1940s, that serotonin is not our friend. Um, but anyway, that's just kind of a side note. If you are on one of those, I highly recommend that you try to get off of them. Cortisol also increases a process called lipolysis. And this is really where sugar is getting blamed for something that fat is doing. And lipolysis is where we turn triglycerides basically into the glycerol component, which is its backbone. And then 3 fatty acids. Um, the fatty acids are usually polyunsaturated because most people are eating a ton of polyunsaturated fat, and they're very inflammatory. And so with the fats, we've been told saturated fat is bad and things like canola oil are good. Well, it's the exact opposite. So fats have a chemical structure, and the saturated fats have only single bonds in their structure. The polyunsaturated fats have 2 or more double bonds in their structure, and the monounsaturated have 1 double bond in their structure. So every time you have a double bond in a fat structure, it's a weak link, and it's kind of like a kick me sign. It's an invitation to do damage. And so the more unsaturated the fat is, the worse it is for you and the more inflammatory it is. And so when we don't eat sugar, cortisol causes us to do this lipolysis process, and we're basically throwing inflammatory fats into our body. And that is what's causing a lot of our problems. And then the cortisol also raises our TSH and lowers our T3 and T4, so we don't have as much energy. It increases the production of histamine, and this is allergies and asthma. It also leads to a mineral imbalance, especially with magnesium, iron, and copper. And then it also increases estrogen. And another contrary to popular belief, when you go through menopause, you're not necessarily too low in estrogen. It's just that the estrogen that we measure doesn't show up in your blood. And we're not, so if we measured a different estrogen, we would find your true amount of estrogen. But estrogen is not good, and it is not actually the female hormone. So there's that too. But anyway, so stress, this is how stress leads to all of these problems. Metabolic dysregulation, cancer, leaky gut, depression, anxiety, you've got hormone imbalance. Reduced energy production is really the main thing. If we can get our energy up, then we can fix a lot of our problems. And so cortisol's main role is actually to make sure that we have enough glucose in our blood so we don't die. So it's pretty important. And sugar turns off the signal for cortisol. So if we don't eat sugar, cortisol is going to tell our body you need to make sugar. And it does this by converting amino acids into sugar and fatty acids, and specifically the triglycerides. And when it uses amino acids, it's basically shredding our muscles. And so what happens when we go on really low calorie diets or we lose weight really fast, low carb, keto, all of those things, we're not getting enough sugar, the body's making it, and it's shredding our muscles. And so we end up losing weight, but we lose a lot of lean body mass, which is what we don't want to do. So having understood that, now we know why it's okay to eat sugar. We need it. And the key is to eat it the right way. And so we really want to focus on fruit and fruit juice. And there is a caveat here with fruit juice. You want to make sure that it doesn't have any extra ingredients in it. And that includes things like vitamin C, vitamin D, calcium. You do not want anything added. It has to be 100% fruit juice. And if you can make it yourself, that's even better. Honey, maple syrup, full fat dairy, but even white sugar is fine. And then gelatin desserts are a really great way to get sugar in. Gelatin has an amino acid called glycine. It's actually very sweet. You can get a glycine supplement, add it to water, and it'll sweeten, or you could add it to your coffee or tea, and it'll sweeten it. But glycine is a pro-metabolic amino acid, so it actually helps promote energy production, and it balances out the other amino acids that tend to reduce energy production. So very healthy. You want, definitely as you age, you want to add more gelatin or collagen or glycine to your diet. Want to add unrefined sea salt to fruit and juice. This turns it into an amazing electrolyte, which is probably a lot cheaper than buying electrolyte supplements. And in desserts, you want to use butter instead of margarine and Crisco or vegetable oils. So here's where the polyunsaturated fats come in again. Most products on the market have the polyunsaturated fats, which are canola oil, corn, cottonseed, sunflower, safflower, grapeseed, peanut, and even avocado oils are not good. So you want to avoid those ones. But we also find polyunsaturated fats in chicken, fish, really any kind of poultry and pork. And so when you're eating a lot of those foods, which most people are because we've again been told red meat is bad, which it isn't. It's actually the healthier meat. But when you're eating a lot of those, it all adds up. So if you're eating a lot of chicken and fish and you're eating vegetable oils, you're getting a lot of polyunsaturated fats in the diet, and those are highly inflammatory. And then, so when you do eat sugar, you want to pair it with a saturated fat, not a polyunsaturated fat. And butter, ghee, coconut oil, red palm oil, beef tallow, duck fat, all of those are really great saturated fats. Now you want to avoid desserts with enriched flour, and this would be added iron and a few B vitamins. You want to avoid artificial colorings and flavors, gums like carrageenan, guar, etc., and of course the polyunsaturated fats. And one of the problems I think that sugar is also getting blamed for is actually being caused by the things we add to food. When we add synthetic vitamins and minerals, the artificial colorings and flavors have a lot of toxins in them. And even the carrageenan and guar and all of those things disrupt your gut, and they cause you to produce more endotoxin. And so a lot of the problems with sugar foods is all the other stuff that's in it. So that's kind of what you want to watch for. So candy, chocolate is great. You just want to stay away from things that have color in them, as that's going to have a lot of toxins that can harm your body. So what can you do? You can eat more sugar. And you do this by adding fruit to each meal, or you can use fruit as a snack. And you just want to add some unrefined sea salt to it. It's very satisfying and delicious. And if you do this, you will not have sugar cravings anymore. You want to replace some of the water that you drink with 100% fruit juice with some unrefined sea salt. We actually don't want to drink plain water because it can increase things like high blood pressure and those things. We need the minerals. And then the sugar also helps as well. You can use full fat dairy, and I recommend raw milk if you can find it. Otherwise, at least avoid ultra pasteurized dairy, and you'll usually will find that in the half-gallon containers of milk. But that is a completely dead food and very inflammatory, so you don't want that. And then you can add. I drink milk with maple syrup in it. It's the most delicious thing on the planet. And if you have an allergy to dairy, there really is no good substitute, unfortunately. The reason dairy is so good is because it has fat soluble vitamins, and none of the replacements have those. So if you can't do dairy, don't use the artificial dairies. They're not helping at all. Make a gelatin-based pudding. And so this is something that I make on a regular basis. And I'll give you guys the recipes for it. But it's really easy. It's just as easy as getting a box from the store where you add 2 cups of milk. All you have to do is throw some sugar and cocoa together and salt with some gelatin and milk, and you've got a delicious dessert that's really good for you too. And then don't be afraid to add sugar and honey or maple syrup to sauces, and you just make all the other stuff you're eating taste better. And then I just want to share a little bit about my MORE framework. This is my process, I guess. So the MORE stands for we want to get more of what you need to tame your stress, correct imbalances, and feel good. And so part of this is more saturated fat, more sugar, more salt, more fun, rest, sleep, joy, more sun. We want to optimize the function of your cells, including all your organs, gut, and mitochondria. And then we want to reduce or remove things that block healing and contribute to stress, like the polyunsaturated fats and the artificial flavorings and sweeteners, enriched grains, and even limiting beliefs and unforgiveness. Those things can actually hold disease in your body. And lastly, we want to enjoy our food and our life. And that's really where it comes down to with the holidays is we want to enjoy the people we are with and the food we are eating. Um, and so we have to start thinking about food in different terms. Um, and then let's see if I can stop sharing for a moment. So, um, yeah, we really want to, and that's really what Italy shows us because they eat a lot of fat and a lot of carbs and just all kinds of things that we would just gain weight on. But the one thing that they do is they have great relationships. They enjoy their food, and we need to start doing that instead of settling or thinking, oh no, I can't have this and this is bad for me and all these things. We want to eat real food. If you're eating real food, you can enjoy it. You don't have to worry about it. And then I am doing let me share that again. A health audit for $99. And you can go to yourhealthaudit.com. And what I'm going to do is we're going to go over your diet and supplements, your lifestyle habits, your stressors. It's really important to connect all of your symptoms with your stress because that gives you an idea of why you have those symptoms, and then we can create a plan for getting rid of them. But that's what we're going to do is create kind of a roadmap for you and do some theta healing. And theta healing is kind of an energy prayer where we can muscle test for beliefs or just change whatever beliefs we think might be there. We do unforgiveness. It's a very simple way to overcome limiting beliefs, the unforgiveness, and all the things that stop us, especially when we have things like trauma in our past. We can do that without having to relive it, which is really great. Yeah, and it's a simple thing, and you don't have to do anything, and you don't even have to believe in God or anybody, as I do, so that's what matters. Um, and anyway, you just sit there and say yes, and I just go up to God, and He does it. So that's how that works. So, are there any questions?
Okay, so a couple questions for you. First, you talked about being able to put sugar back into your diet.
Yes.
I think we're very conditioned of I need so many calories, so many grams, but I didn't hear you speak to a general guideline of what we're looking at per day. So maybe you could just talk to that for
Yeah.
those people that are going to start adding this back in. Maybe don't go crazy, or maybe we do. I don't know. Do we?
Yeah, you can actually. So, I actually think it's best not to worry so much about calories and the amounts of everything. Because if you look at history, we never did that until the recent past. And we didn't have an obesity problem or all these chronic diseases. And so, what you really want to do is tune into your body and how you feel. And so, you might start with adding one fruit at each meal. You might start by adding a tablespoon of maple syrup to your milk, that kind of thing. But you really, um, whenever you do change your diet, especially if you're going to go from like a low carb to a high carb diet, you're probably going to gain some weight at first. So just be aware of that because your body is going to have to change the way it's processing nutrients again. But it will work out in the end, and eventually you will start losing weight. They have actually put people on pretty much almost 100% sugar diets, and it cured all of their metabolic issues and obesity. So sugar is a clean burning fuel, and the body knows what to do with it. If you eat more sugar, you will store less fat eventually, once your body switches over. But yeah, I would just go by how you feel, and um, don't don't eat to the point of being stuffed, and then you should be fine.
And how long would you say that this process can take for somebody that's wanting to move from, a processed sugar diet and maybe just tracking all of those different things to now being able to live a little more freely and feel good, like you're saying? You said it takes your body some
Mhm.
time. What does
Yeah,
that look like?
it will probably take about 4 weeks, probably. But you will start feeling more energy. And one of the things that can help is actually taking some strategic nutrients. And so that's one of the things I'll go over in the health audit. But things like niacinamide, vitamin E, vitamin K2, magnesium. So all of these other things can help the body process um, the sugars and fats properly.
Okay, it's on, ladies. A couple more questions for you. One, you mentioned having some unrefined sea salt to partner. And I'm going to just throw this out there because I think it's kind of a trendy thing right now. I've seen all of the sea salt, Celtic salt, Himalayan pink sea salt. There's lots of different salts out there. So I guess, how do you know which one to pick? Are they good, or should we just stick to the unrefined?
Yeah, so like the Celtic sea salt is really great. And I think somebody did a video on it, so it's really hard to find right now because people are buying it up and selling it on eBay. So, which is not very helpful. So, yeah, stop buying all that stuff on Amazon and eBay, and it'll go back in the stores. Um, but salt should have some color to it. So if it's pure white, it's refined. So you want the Celtic sea salt. I put that in water and use it in any liquid kind of thing because it dissolves really well. Otherwise, I use real salt. Redmond's, I think, is the brand, but that's available in like every store. And it hasn't, I don't think people are buying that one up quite as fast. So, like, those are the really easy ones. The Himalayan is okay. It's just that there have been more microplastics found in it. So, it's not actually one of the better ones. It's one of the better advertised ones, but not necessarily the healthiest.
And I love everything that you're saying. And one of the things that you mentioned was there's a really big connection on trauma, emotions, and tied to our health. And I think we all see that sometimes when we go through emotional roller coasters, right? If we're really
Right.
upset or really sad, or eating or maybe not eating in either direction. And I guess the question is for the ladies that are going to be watching this and learning from you, where do they know to go to find some of these like truths? Obviously, they have you. Thank goodness we
Mhm.
have you, and we're so glad to have you part of our DFW Women's Club. But what are some maybe good resources where they could start? Because I think there's a lot to dig into, right? And what would you
Mhm.
recommend to them? Because I think just that alone can be stressful trying to figure out is this good or bad or not? And that could maybe even increase cortisol levels, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and it is really hard because there is so much conflicting information out there. Um, but if there is a lot of stress and mental fatigue and that kind of thing, that's when you really want to add more simple sugars. I guarantee you it will make you feel so much better. Um, and so, like, don't even worry about how much you're adding, just add it until you feel better. And then from like good resources would be like the Weston A. Price Foundation. WestonAPrice.org is very good. They back up a lot of their stuff with science. Um, the Carnivore MD or Heart and Soil supplements, or Paul Saladino, MD. How I think he has to keep changing his stuff because they throw him off social media. He has really great information and goes through some studies. There's this website, HAI, D as in dog, UT as in Tom.me, and that has some great articles and science that really goes into increasing energy production, which is really, everything comes down to energy.
Yeah, I loved when I was reading your bio, it said she just wants to help badass and feel badass again and live our crazy lives and do all the
Yeah.
things that we want to do. So that's why I love you.
And have fun doing it.
Yeah, and have fun doing it, right? There's so many amazing things we get to do. And so we're just so thankful. Can you share again, maybe the slide or just the website
Yeah,
so that they know where to go to reach out to you to do this assessment? Is that 30 minutes, an hour
it's an hour.
online?
Yeah, it's an hour. We'll meet. We can either meet on the phone or video, whichever you prefer. Yeah, and we'll just go over all of those things. And at the end, I just do some theta work based on, what we've talked about and that kind of stuff. And so far, like 2 days after I do this with somebody, they're calling me and saying, I can't believe it. I have so much energy. I haven't felt this good in a year. Or it's something like that. So, like, the theta work really is amazing, but also getting your diet settled, the right supplements, and they're not all. You don't have to take like horribly expensive supplements, and you don't necessarily have to be on them forever. So sometimes it's more expensive up front just to get everything back in balance, but most of the supplements that you would keep for life or so are really not very expensive. And so
Okay.
yourhealthaudit.com.
I
And then
love that.
my website is revivedwoman.com.
Okay. All right. So now they know where to find you. Some really great resources, and we can go into the holidays with a really great idea of how to have fun and not feel guilty about it. Know that we're doing
Yeah.
something good for our bodies. So
Yeah, and when you start eating more sugar, you're not going to crave it, so you're not going to go to the parties and like pig out on everything. So
right,
yeah,
like the mindset, like, oh, I can only have one, or today's my cheat day. I have to eat everything.
yeah, no
So
cheat days. No, we're just talking about food here, and you're just paying attention to whether it feels good on you or not, and then just go with what feels good, and and not good in the moment, just in the moment, but good like later, like you're not having diarrhea and whatever. Stomach
tons of
ache.
bloating. Yes.
Yeah,
I love that. Thank you so much, Annette, for being with us today. This is really game changing and a really great way for us to look at how we can balance our lives out and not increase cortisol just stressing out about our diets and our health.
yeah,
So
we
you're
create
awesome.
the best too.
Thank you so much. We're so glad to have you part of our DFW Women's Club
You're
and
welcome.
our speaker here today. We appreciate you.
Thank you,
Thank
Annette.
you. Hey,
Have a good day.
you too.